And my mother and my families were born in, we were living in Missinaba. When my mother was pregnant, I was the first one in our family to be born in the hospital. And she had to go to Chapleau, Ontario. And that's where I was born. But then after I was born, we went back to Missinaba. And I was brought up there till I was about 5 years old.
Are you Cree then?
I'm Missinaba Cree, First Nation. And I'm a status native from our community.
Which residential school did you go to?
I went to Chapleau, Ontario, St. John's Anglican Residential School there. And after that was closed in 1948, they shut it down, and the following September, I was brought to Shingwauk here.
How old were you when you first went?
When I first went to Chapleau School, we had moved from Missinaba, and when I was 5, we had moved from Missinaba to Chapleau, and it was down the river, about 2 kilometers down from Chapleau, the town. And the only means of transportation there was canoe, or in the wintertime we had a sleigh with the dog, or we had to walk along the river where it's safer along the shore. And I had to walk to school with my brother. And we went to the town public school. I went there for a year, and then it was my mother got worried every time we went on the river. So it was kind of dangerous in the spring to walk on the river because of the ice melting. And she was worried. So she, after Christmas, they had to put me in Chapleau Residential School in I think that was 1941 or 40. I can't remember now which year precisely, but it was around in there, 41 or 40. And I went to school, and I was about 6 or 7. 6 or 7, I think it was about 6 years old. I went to Chapleau boarding Indian residential school, and I remember distinctly the time they came and got me. I will never lose that.
Did you know that they were coming to get you, or did they just...
Yes, my mother dressed me all up, and we went to town. We went to town by the dog. I was sitting in the toboggan, and she was walking alongside, and that's how we got to town. And at the town, we were to meet the principal from the school, which she had a cutter, and the name of the horse was Blackie. And he was just a riding horse, like. And I remember getting into the cutter and saying goodbye to my mom. And after we got going, I was still saying goodbye. I was still waving at her. And I was crying and wondering why she sent me away. So in the back, in the seat there was the driver's seat, and the principal was up there, and I was in the back all by myself with this great big bear rug. So I crawled under the bear rug, and I held that over me because it was winter time, and I felt warm, and so I stayed under there, and I cried for the rest of till we got to the school, which was about 5 kilometers from downtown, or maybe less than that, probably less. I think about 3, yeah. Because I lived there not very long ago. I just moved to the Sioux here. Anyway, I remember that day, and When they closed in 1948, we came here to Shingwauk. But the years that I spent there at that school were not really happy years. And I was wondering why they put me in such an awful place where there was no, because on the reserve when I was growing up, I was free. That was the best part of my childhood. That was the only childhood I had. Because the other part of the school, you lived by the bell. There was a bell for everything. A bell when you got up in the morning. A bell when you went to breakfast. A bell after breakfast when you went to service in the auditorium. You had a hymn and a sermon from the principal, and then a prayer. And then you had to line up again. All this you had to line up before the bell went. Or you had when you did have the bell went first, and then you went up into the playroom or wherever you had in the classrooms. You had to line up in the hall. So, and the bell went again for you to get upstairs to your classroom where the hall was. You had to line up there and go to school, and your bell at recess time, and then your bell at dinner time, and then your bell again in the afternoon to go back to school after dinner, lunch. And it was bell all day, recess time from school. Well, the kids today still have that. But when you had those bells all the time, you know, it was just like you were in a jail or prison or something, some kind of institution, you know. So even today, when I hear bells ringing, or it automatically shoots my mind, and I'm thinking about this place here, or, you know, when it was a school. It's a lot different than that now. And I remember the times when I was just telling the other girls in the auditorium there. I says, well, after lunch I used to run as fast as I could to get on the swing after lunch. If I didn't have any chores to do, like you had chores in the morning to do before, everybody had to make their own bed as soon as they got up, even the little wee ones. So today I know how to make a bed. And all the little kids, you know how by the time they went home for summer holidays. And that was a break. That was a break. We used to count the days. We used to count the days as soon as the spring came for the school to close in June so we could go home. And that what kept us going, I think, and our friends that we had. And but I used to remember I used to run for the swing, and that was a time when I was by myself. Well, they were there. There was 3 swings, and I had one, so there's 2 other, you know, but more or less I was by myself. I felt like I was by myself there, you know, so I used to sing. I used to be singing all the time when I went on the swing. I just swing so hard, you know, and sang real loud at the top of my voice. And then I was in a choir too when I came here. And I think that was one of the times when I could be me. Otherwise, it was, no, you're not supposed to do that. No, don't do that. No, don't say those things. And I was beginning to learn my language when they took me and they brought me from home. And I remember I used to be with my grandfather and grandmother all the time down on our reserve. I used to go fishing with them. I used to go trapping with them. I used to go hunting. I used to go getting wood with them. I used to go with my grandfather in the bush when I was there. I used to cut wood way back in the bush for us. Keep warm in the winter, especially in the winter time. I used to get dressed and he used to sit me on the sleigh. And then when we came back with the sleigh all full, and he made the sleigh. He made everything. He used to make canoes, birch bark canoes. He made canvas canoes. He used to make his axe handles, his paddles, his snowshoes. He used to make everything that he had. And we lived on the land. We lived off the land. We used to pick berries in the summer. I used to pick berries with bears around. And they never bothered me. My grandmother told me, don't bother them, they won't bother you. So I believed her. And that was true. Yes. I had a good childhood there. And I will always remember that. And then I remembered that they never told me when my grandparents passed on in school. And I must have been about 10 years old then. I would have understood. I know I would have. When they would have told me that my grandparents have gone. And I didn't know. I kept hoping that I'd see them in the summer. And then I came here. I was sick over there. And when I was in Chapleau, I got my tonsils out. But they took good care of me. I remember.
Sorry. Did you go with any siblings to the school, or did you just go?
Oh, yes. There was 11 of us in our family.
Oh, wow. Big family.
When I went to school, my, John, Arnold, Stanley, and there's 3 younger than me. There's Alice, Shirley, and Billy. And Shirley is sitting in there now. And she was about 2 years old. No, 3. No, maybe. No, 4. And Billy was 2. Billy was my youngest brother. He was 2 years old when I went there.
Did you get to see them at school? Or were you really
We only
separated?
saw our siblings once a month. Once a month. And we didn't know what to talk about. We were just glad. I was just glad to see them, that they were okay. That they were not sick or maimed or anything like that, Maybe they were, but they didn't talk about it. Because we didn't see them that much to have anything common, like a family that grows, that stays together and plays, and eats and stays in the same house and enjoys the outdoors or enjoy each other's company. We did not have that. So we don't know how we didn't know. We didn't know how to be parents. We don't know. All my sisters, they didn't know how to be parents to their children. So their children, some of them grew up to be very, um, very aggressive and very um, selfish and very uh, thinking about me, 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 me. You know, and I want. We don't think about that when our ancestors never thought that way. I, or me, or want. We always shared. I remember sharing when I was a little kid in Missinabie. I used to go see my aunts, and they used to sit down and give me cookies or bannock or whatever they had. They always shared. But now the kids today are all, I mean not all, but our generation, uh, that they don't have that kind of attitude towards life. That you have to have that in order to go on to and to help yourself when you get older. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to live with taking care of oneself. When I left, I couldn't leave home till I was 21. My father would not let me go. I had to stay home and help my aunts, my uncles. I had to look after my siblings. There was four of us, and three of them were younger than me. I had to look after them when I was 14. Cook for them, wash for them, make sure they're washed and kept clean and ate. So I didn't really, I was taught that. But today they don't know. Like when I was 21, I didn't want to stay home anymore. I wanted to go for myself, you know, to go into the world and see what they had taught me in school, to see if I could live by that in the world. But it wasn't the same. I knew when I got out there, if I don't go to work, who's going to look after me? Who's going to feed me? Where am I going to live? Where am I going to sleep? I don't want to sleep in the street. I don't want to be out in the street looking for this and that and begging here, going from door to door or whatever, however they do, I don't know. But I always worked, and I always made sure I had a place to go home, that I had a place to call my home. And so when I came to Shingwauk here after they closed the Chapleau school, it was a different setting because it's more or less in a bigger town. Chapleau was only a small little town, and so when I came here, I was a senior girl then in the school. The other place I was an intermediate and a junior and intermediate as I gradually grew older. But when they closed that down there, I was an intermediate here and then a senior when I went to school. I went to Sault Tech downtown. Excuse me. And the last year I was here, I had an appendicitis attack. This is the story I want to be telling too. I had an appendicitis attack. I came back from the summer holidays. It was in September, and I was okay till about the middle of September, I think it was. Excuse me. Is there any Kleenex?
Sorry, we didn't bring any in.